Tonight, Shane Warne's family shares the video it wants the world to see.
You chicken little monkey. You chicken little monkey.
That's not.
As authorities work on the sad mission to bring him home to Melbourne.
Dam danger in a new flood crisis in Sydney. Thousands scramble to safety.
A police officer walks free over the Danny Laidley mugshot scandal.
Can you tell us how you feel about the outcome of the case?
Thousands of families given just 2 hours to flee the fighting in Ukraine.
Petrol prices soaring, drivers told to expect average prices of more than $2 a litre within days.
And a star pie facing the AFL tribunal. Details live.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Rebecca Madden and Mike Amor.
Good evening. Shane Warne's family has released never-before-seen home videos of the cricket legend as they battle to come to terms with his death.
Tonight, authorities are working to bring the 52-year-old's body back to Melbourne after Thai police confirmed he died of natural causes.
Under police escort, Shane Warne's body is transported to Bangkok for his final trip home. As his family posts candid home videos.
Okay! Wait, do it from the side.
Warnie as an embarrassing daggy dad from youngest daughter, Summer.
You chicken little monkey.
Oh my God.
You chicken little monkey.
That's not.
God, you made me laugh, Dad, she wrote. I'd do anything to hear that laugh again. It feels like I'm dreaming, waiting for someone to wake me up and to tell me that you're okay. This can't be real life. Shane's former partner, Elizabeth Hurley, responded, I love you, Summer. Your daddy worshipped you. Earlier, in Thailand, the local Assistant Police Commissioner formally announced autopsy results. The hospital confirmed natural causes, he said. The Australian ambassador spoke of the impact.
His very early and untimely death has been a terrible shock and a very sad event for his family, but also for all those in the cricketing world.
The friends Warnie travelled with, grateful.
On behalf of Shane Warne's family, we'd like to thank the people of Thailand for the compassion and honour they've shown Shane Warne.
Warne's body will be flown back to Melbourne once official paperwork is completed. The German woman who left flowers inside the ambulance carrying Warne's body as it left the resort will not face charges. Local police say she's committed no crime. Back in Melbourne, the Premier says he spoke to the Warne family yesterday. There's still no final decision on the location or the timing of the state memorial.
It's important that we all give the family enough time to make sure that when we celebrate Shane's life, that we do that consistent with what they want.
And an emotional Glenn McGrath revealed he had a long conversation with Warnie just before he left for Thailand.
At the time, he didn't realise it was the last time we chat, but I feel like there was nothing left unsaid, and he was just an amazing guy, and it was a lot of special memories.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
The painstaking mission to bring Shane Warne home is underway. Olivia Leeming has the latest from Bangkok. And Olivia, there's been a delay in proceedings.
Mike, Shane Warne's friends and family had been hoping that his body would be flown home to Australia today so that he can finally be laid to rest. But now it's not due to leave here until tomorrow at the earliest, possibly not until Thursday. The cricket great's loved ones are organising a charter flight direct from Bangkok to Melbourne so that there's no transfer to navigate and to ensure that the plane arrives at a private hangar for the family's privacy. The friends of Shane Warne, who were staying with him on holiday in Koh Samui, who desperately tried to revive him, they have also made their way to Bangkok to help with those arrangements, work through the huge amount of paperwork that's required for this to ensure that his body can be flown home as soon as possible. Beck?
Olivia Leeming, thank you. Emergency evacuations are underway in Sydney with a key dam overflowing in a worsening flood crisis. The relentless rain has turned deadly, with a mother and son found in a creek after their car went off the road.
Still so much rain after so many days. Sydney's unforgiving floods killing a grandmother and her son in the city's west. Their bodies found near their car, which crashed into a stormwater drain.
Just one, and it was a female.
A 7 News crew found the elderly woman and guided police to the bodies. Sydney recording more than 130 millimetres of rain since yesterday morning. That's 11% of its annual rainfall in just a day and a half. It has to go somewhere. Here, the M5 tunnel fills up. This landslide almost took a house with it. Locals in the town of Camden were told to leave this morning as the nearby Nepean River went 3 metres higher.
We will get through this together.
A message repeated from the top down, but in Lismore, anger is growing. So too confusion in the clean-up.
What I think needs to happen is greater resourcing of local communities, because that's where the knowledge is.
There's little accommodation left for people now homeless. Almost 900 are in temporary accommodation tonight. Locals say the help they're getting is not enough.
How come it's taken so long?
Well, Kosh, in some of the areas they've been inaccessible and only accessible by helicopter.
Our government should have been doing something about this a long time ago.
The Defence Force presence grows by the hour.
We currently have around 600 ADF personnel on the ground. We expect that to be close to 1,300 by the end of the day.
Victoria sending 38 more state emergency service workers to help. The job ahead to clear 4,000 tonnes of debris.
We've got 3 stages. We've got a stripping stage where all the furniture comes out that's been destroyed, and then there's the washout where the fire brigade comes through and hoses everything down, and then there's the detail clean after that.
This afternoon, the Manly Dam began to overflow. 2,000 nearby residents put on alert they may have to leave. Another 800 homes now at risk. The New South Wales floods have created more than 30,000 insurance claims. In Queensland, more than 60,000. Insurance assessors are being brought in from overseas to help with the backlog. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
And reporter Tom Saker joins us now live from Sydney. Tom, residents near Manly Dam have been evacuated.
Well, they haven't quite been, but they have been put on notice, Beck. The suburbs surrounding Manly Dam here on the northern beaches in Sydney have been given an evacuation warning earlier today, basically to expect the worst. Water levels here carried cars away this afternoon in front of school children here where I'm standing on a schoolgirls' campus in the northern beaches. They saw a four-wheel drive BMW float down this very road behind me and end up just a few hundred metres down this road. Water levels here have subsided significantly in the past hour, but the weather forecast certainly isn't good. The Bureau just a couple of hours ago issuing another warning saying that huge parts of the northern beaches can expect dangerous and life-threatening flash flooding. And also in Narrabeen, which is just about half an hour north of here, also on the northern beaches, those residents there have been told to evacuate because Narrabeen Lake is on the rise. And that's on top of on top of the rainfall that has already inundated this area today, Beck.
We are thinking of everybody. Tom Saker, thank you.
A detective accused of leaking photos of Danny Laidley has been acquitted on all charges. The court today cleared Senior Constable Murray Gentner, but the former AFL coach could still take the matter further.
Emerging from the centre of a serious controversy, Murray Gentner is now in the clear.
Murray, what's your take on the outcome? Can you tell us how you feel about the outcome of the case?
A court found the detective leading Senior Constable had no case to answer over the release of photos and information following the arrest of Danielle Laidley.
Have you got a message for Danny Laidley? Anything you'd like to say to Danny Laidley?
In May 2020, Laidley was arrested and taken to St Kilda Police Station. The court heard the very next day Gentner shared a copy of Laidley's mugshot with a small group of police officers on a WhatsApp chat. He also discussed the arrest in crude terms with former colleagues via text messages. But Gentner was found not guilty of misconduct and releasing police information. The magistrate satisfied his actions didn't harm any police investigations. The matter may return to the courts. Danielle Laidley is suing the state government over the release of the photos. Gentner remains a member of Victoria Police. His case was funded by the Police Association. Victoria Police won't comment until the 28-day appeal period has passed. Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
Thousands of families have used a brief Russian ceasefire as a desperate window to flee Ukraine. There were gut-wrenching scenes with parents carrying children and the elderly, but not all humanitarian corridors were safe.
Irpin's humanitarian corridor, a one-way escape route, and thousands took it. A frantic and dramatic morning as they ferried them out. Ambulances, buses, helping the helpless leave a city under fire all week, protected by the promise of a ceasefire. Desperate over family left behind. 17-year-old Sebastian in panic.
I'm very scared about my sisters, they're very small, and about my mother.
With the clothes on their back and the kids at their side.
So here comes another ambulance, one of many that have been ferrying back and forth between Irpin up the road and here, this safety zone. They are bringing as many people as they possibly can back here, ferrying them back and forth. And then once that's done, once these have been dropped and delivered to safety, these ambulance officers, brave as they are, will head straight back in there to gather more.
No one knew how long the ceasefire would last. It started 9 a.m. local, with rumours it would end at 11.
Well, there you go. The ceasefire was supposed to last until at least 11 o'clock. It's now 20 past, and that is the clearest and loudest explosion we've heard so far. Incoming, obviously, but it has been rumbling along for the last 20 minutes in the far background. But that shell fire now distinctly increasing.
As the last people of Irpin escape down this humanitarian corridor. But corridors elsewhere failed for a third day running. And it was revealed the Russian-backed plan had a catch. The routes to freedom actually led to a Russian-held territory, or Belarus, a Russian ally. Ukraine's furious president called it absurd and refused the deal, as round 3 of peace talks failed to find a breakthrough. As she fled, destination unknown, the Pentagon issued a new warning. The more frustrated Putin becomes, the more he's relying on long-range fire, only raising civilian casualties. Perhaps, it says, on purpose.
The bottom line is more civilians are being killed and wounded. More civilian infrastructure is being damaged or destroyed, and Mr. Putin still has a choice here.
Ukrainians keep digging in. This, it says, another Russian plane shot out of the sky. But 1.7 million of their people and counting have fled in 12 brutal days.
And Chris Reason is live in Kyiv. And Chris, there's been an update from Ukraine's military leaders.
Yeah, good evening to you, Mike. Look, we don't often hear when the Ukrainians are losing. We certainly hear a lot about when they're winning. And today, the Chief of Staff of the Ukraine military has put out a post on his Facebook page saying that they have noticed a very significant slowdown in the Russian advance. And they're also noticing that the Russian troops are having trouble, many of them, firing on their Ukrainian brothers. Now, the Russian response to that, according to US intelligence, has been to recruit Syrian fighters and Chechen fighters, bringing them in not only, of course, as you know, well experienced in urban warfare, Mike, but also no problems at all about shooting to kill. Mike?
Live in Kyiv, Chris Reason, take care.
Australians are being warned to brace for more pain at the petrol pump as fuel prices soar. Global supply shortages push the cost of a diesel additive to a national record today, with regular unleaded set to remain above $2.
On the Gold Coast, petrol is like liquid gold. E10 at $2.19 a litre.
Petrol prices in Australia have risen,
with warnings they'll remain high for a long time.
These prices are completely off the scale and have broken every record that we've ever seen.
Expecting average prices for regular unleaded to break through $2 a litre within days, on the way to $2.20 as the war in Ukraine disrupts supplies and a price spike for the fuel additive AdBlue pushes diesel prices skyward.
It's significant for Australia because our economy runs on diesel. The farming is run on diesel, transport, agriculture, mining.
Those increases passing on from producers to suppliers to retailers and finally consumers.
It's a very simple equation. If fuel goes up, the cost of living goes up.
With no relief in sight, according to OPEC, which controls world oil.
We are facing a global game changer.
Scott Morrison today promised to counter critical supply issues in other areas by making Australia more self-sufficient in products like computer semiconductors, chemicals and pharmaceuticals. But he can't promise that on oil.
I wish I could say this era of radical uncertainty is coming to an end, but it's not.
Everything is rising in this country except for people's wages.
Wanting the government to pay at the election. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Farmers have circled Spring Street in their tractors to protest against the planned construction of electricity towers in their towns. A local movie star joined the fight that some say could cost them their homes.
Ploughing their way to Parliament with a message and a famous face on board.
Come on, let's stop Austin's towers, baby!
As Dale Kerrigan, he didn't mind the power lines.
Dad, he reckons power lines are a reminder of man's ability to generate electricity.
But as Stephen Curry, he's a local impacted by an AusNet plan to build 380 high-voltage transmission towers.
This is environmental piracy masquerading as sustainability, and it's got to be stopped.
The towers, which AusNet says are vital, will stretch across 190 kilometres in the state's west. Locals say the Premier and Energy Minister, Lily D'Ambrosio, have the power to scrap the project.
It's going to disrupt farming. They can't farm underneath these power lines.
We need the Melbourne people to say, no, take it underground.
That's a national energy regulator and a private business project. That's not a Victorian government project.
The Energy Minister wasn't talking to protesters, but she was taking aim at the opposition and its new stance on net zero emissions.
The opposition's claims of having some type of position on climate change is simply the act of cowardice, frankly. They are climate change cowards.
The claim of cutting emissions by 50% by 2030 was made by James Newbury, but it was left up to the opposition leader to clarify when they'd agreed to the new targets.
I think I said it once on Joy FM, I think I said it once on 3AW as well, in fact twice. So, from that sense, it's not something that I'm going to re-announcing for the first time.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
Well, no luck for the Magpies at the tribunal tonight. Tim Watson, the AFL's taken a stand.
They have Beck. Braden Maynard's suspension remains. Mitch Cleary is across the hearing, and Mitch, the defender, will miss the season opener.
Tim, it's a big blow for Maynard and the Pies. The tribunal ruling he'll miss that round 1 game against St Kilda and round 2 against Adelaide. In one of the quickest tribunal hearings in recent memory, the tribunal found that he breached his duty of care in this spoil against giant Daniel Lloyd on the weekend that left him concussed. The tribunal ruling that 2-match ban would be upheld. It's not all bad news though for the Magpies. We'll have the latest on their injury news later in sport.
Also ahead, the AFL reveals their COVID contingency plans. We'll go one-on-one with footy boss Brad Scott, and we'll have exclusive details too on a missing footy star. I'll see you both again soon.
See you soon. Thanks, Tim. Security was on high alert this morning as an accused cop killer faced court over the murder of 2 police officers. Details next on 7 News.
Also ahead, how a hero Nan in a 90 fought back against thieves.
580 statues in Melbourne, but only 9 of women. Why that's about to change.
Just in time for winter, a flu vaccine for children as young as 2.
And later, new moves to ease endometriosis pain. An accused double murderer has faced court more than 20 years after the killings of 2 Victorian police officers. Jason Roberts has pleaded not guilty in the shooting deaths of Gary Silk and Rodney Miller, with proceedings set to last months.
An accused double murderer arrives at court under a heavy police presence as the families of his alleged victims prepare to see him face to face. Jason Joseph Roberts is set to argue he isn't guilty of shooting Sergeant Gary Silk and Senior Constable Rodney Miller dead in 1998.
The officers were shot after stopping a car.
The officers were gunned down while staking out a Moorabbin restaurant as part of an investigation into a spate of robberies. Roberts has admitted to carrying out 10 violent robberies with his associate Bandali Debs, but is expected to claim he wasn't there when Debs' car was pulled over and the 2 officers were killed. Today, a jury was told it was highly unlikely Debs was alone on the night Silk and Miller were shot, because Roberts and Debs usually carried out their crimes together. There was a tendency for them to set out to commit and actually commit armed robberies, both armed with firearms, in the manner that required 2 offenders. It is highly improbable that Debs would have set out alone. The hearing of Jason Roberts will be a marathon one. Today, the jury was told they're set to spend a lot more time together because hearings could run as long as 4 months. It's a big case warranting a big team. The trial continues tomorrow. Estelle Greeping, 7 News.
A new flu vaccine is set to be rolled out for children as young as 2. Flucelvax is Australia's first and only cell-based influenza vaccine approved by the TGA. Last year, it was only available to those 9 and over.
We do see children get the flu and be responsible for a very significant amount of transmission, the so-called super spreaders potentially. And the flu is one of the biggest causes for admissions from an infectious diseases point of view.
Children are at a higher risk of serious flu complications, with around 15% needing hospital treatment. The Andrews government has used International Women's Day to reveal plans for 6 new female statues in Victoria. Events across the city are celebrating women, but there are renewed calls to reduce the widening gender pay gap.
There are 580 statues around Melbourne. Just 9 are of women.
About 1.5% of Melbourne statues are of real women, and I say real women because we are excluding the nymphs and the fairies. There are more statues of animals than there are of women.
But that's about to change. The state government has announced a new public art program commissioning 6 new female statues.
The historical wrong is finally beginning to be righted in this city.
A statue of Zelda Deprano will be positioned at Trades Hall, a women's rights advocate who chained herself to a Melbourne building 50 years ago, fighting for equal pay.
Honouring Zelda is not just about one woman, but it's also about the collective struggle of women to create a world where we can be safe, respected and equal.
There'll also be a statue of comedian and disability rights advocate Stella Young.
We're not only inspiring a new generation of young women to aspire to leadership, but we're showcasing different kinds of leadership.
At an International Women's Day event, Victoria Police called for more women to join the force.
When they're responding to incidents, family violence incidents or sexual abuse cases, women excel in those roles in particular. They bring a really unique set of skills.
The fight for equality has come a long way in recent decades, but more work is still needed. Women still earn on average 23% less than men, and that gap widened last year.
Lifting women benefits our whole community.
Christy Cooper, 7 News.
A Gold Coast grandmother has bravely confronted a thief mid-robbery while wrapped in her dressing gown. The man was breaking into a neighbour's home when the 74-year-old ran across the road and chased him away.
Hey! She's an angel. I'm taking her out for tea tonight. Take her over to the pub and buy tea. Shout at the pokies.
The man fled with a box of jewellery. Jane Bunn joins us now. And Jane, thankfully, we're not in the path of that Sydney rain.
No, Mike, that deluge will head out to sea. It will be missing Melbourne. Despite that, the city has already received its March average rain in the first 8 days. If you head east, though, Malakuta had that amount in just 18 hours overnight, while Ulladulla had 4 times that amount and nearly 500 millimetres since March began. The rain is moving around a low that is here and slamming into the coast. But that low is about to move away, and next we have a long dry stretch. The full details are after sport.
Okay. Thanks, Jane. We have breaking news coming in on a rare mosquito-borne virus. That's straight ahead.
Plus, there are new eyes on the road to fight back to work traffic gridlock and steer drivers away from congestion. Details next on 7 News.
Also ahead, the search for a missing 11-year-old girl.
Women targeted in Bayside sex attacks. New details.
And a famous Melbourne red rattler back on track.
To breaking news, and health officials have just revealed a Victorian man has died from a rare mosquito-borne virus. Rochelle Brown, his shock death has sparked an urgent warning.
Beck, officials are strongly urging Victorians to take steps to limit their exposure to mosquitoes and to avoid stagnant water. It follows confirmation a man in his 60s from northern Victoria has died from Japanese encephalitis. It's the first death recorded since the Health Department issued a warning late last week. There have been 7 confirmed cases recorded in Victoria since. An autopsy has been completed and further investigations are underway into how the victim contracted the virus. A vaccine is available and is currently only recommended for people working with pigs. Mike?
Rochelle, thank you. Police are appealing for help to find a missing 11-year-old girl last heard from around 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. India vanished while wearing a black Kathmandu jacket, a white crop top and grey Champion tracksuit pants. Her family say her disappearance is out of character. Police believe India may be in Hampton or Ascot Vale.
A new high-tech tactic has been unleashed in the fight against Melbourne's back-to-work congestion. More than 700 cameras are now trained on our roads, helping drivers avoid peak-hour gridlock.
They're the eyes in the sky, keeping a close watch on Melbourne roads.
We've got unparalleled visibility of what's happening on the network.
Signal engineers are helping reduce congestion with more than 700 newly installed cameras.
We can all look at a red line on a map and that's really helpful, but our teams can actually see why there is congestion and they can tweak the signals to help facilitate moving traffic away from and around those disruptions to reduce delays to motorists.
The technology can also help commuters steer clear of gridlock even before leaving home.
Whether it's live updates on radio, whether it's the Vic Traffic app, whether it's any other social media means.
Hotspots include Melbourne's west, east and southeastern suburbs.
These roads like the Nepean Highway, Springvale Road, Warrigal Road, over in the west, all of our roads around the Princess Freeway to try and facilitate people moving through Altona and Werribee, and then also in the southeast around Montana and also Monash.
The $340 million investment will now be put to the ultimate test as traffic on our roads returns to pre-pandemic levels.
We know people are continuing to shun public transport to a large extent and get in their motor vehicles.
New pedestrian sensors have also been installed at busy intersections, monitoring just how many people are waiting to cross to shorten the amount of red light time for motorists. Sarah Jones, 7 News.
A man has surrendered to police just hours after they made a public appeal to catch a sex creep accused of assaulting 2 women in different St Kilda bars. Detectives released pictures of a suspect with an Irish accent they say groped a woman on February 13. Almost a week later, he's accused of trying to kiss another woman as she was passing out at a bar on Blessington Street. Tonight, the suspect is being questioned by police.
The Queen has welcomed her first official visitor to Windsor Castle since she contracted COVID. Canadian leader Justin Trudeau said Her Majesty remains as insightful as ever as her recovery gathers pace.
Back on her feet, the Queen beams as she greets the Canadian Prime Minister. In the Oak Room at Windsor Castle, Justin Trudeau and the monarch of 15 nations, including Canada, enjoy a lighter moment. But it's clear serious subjects were discussed too. In a vase, blue and yellow flowers, seemingly a subtle message of solidarity with Ukraine from the apolitical sovereign.
She was as insightful and perspicacious as ever, very interested in what's going on, asked me all sorts of questions about Canada, and we had a really useful, for me anyway, conversation about global events, as we always do.
This her first in-person audience since contracting COVID just over a fortnight ago.
Remember, this COVID infection happened to a 95-year-old. In fact, she'll be 96 in April. So that we've seen her in person, able to conduct an audience with Justin Trudeau in the way that she was today, I think everyone was very relieved.
And no need for the royal walking stick today. It's clear the Queen has been steadily increasing her workload, initially with virtual engagements, now with a return to receiving visitors here at Windsor Castle. All positive signs, with Her Majesty due at a service at Westminster Abbey next week. In Windsor, England, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
Melbourne's famous Red Rattler train is making tracks again. It's just undergone $1 million restoration, giving Victorian families a chance to step back in time.
A piece of Melbourne history brought back to life. The famous Red Rattler back on Victorian tracks.
It's really good because we never thought we'd see this train run again.
5 carriages returned to their former glory with new safety features after 6 years of painstaking restoration.
There's been a lot of work, probably more frustration than anything else, wondering who's going to do what and getting all the paperwork done.
To see what the volunteers have done here, and they're the ones who've dedicated their heart and soul to making this day reality.
It's part of a multi-million-dollar project to promote tourism in the Dandenong Ranges.
It's not only going to be used by Victorians but Australians, international tourists. It's going to basically bring history back to life.
The Tate trains first hit the tracks in 1910 before being phased out in the mid-80s. It's hoped this will be the first of many rolling back into Melbourne stations.
They can experience travelling in them how their perhaps parents did or grandparents did years ago.
Ashley Kanowski, 7 News.
Melbourne researchers are behind a world first to put an end to endometriosis pain. The details are coming up on 7 News.
Also tonight, why the future King of England is set to bail out Prince Andrew.
And South Yarra's famous jam factory set for a $1 billion makeover.
A young woman has been critically injured in a stabbing attack at a St Albans pub. The 25-year-old victim and her partner were in the gaming room when they were both stabbed by an unknown patron. A 26-year-old man was also taken to hospital with minor injuries. A 30-year-old Melton man has been charged over the alleged attack and faced court today.
South Yarra's famed jam factory is getting a major makeover. The $1.5 billion rebuild will include 400 new apartments and a 164-room luxury hotel. A new retail precinct will also be built on the Chapel Street site. The 2 apartment towers will be 26 storeys high. Councillors hope the renovation will help lure shoppers back. Prince Charles is reportedly loaning his brother, Prince Andrew, millions of dollars so he can meet the pay deadline for his sex abuse settlement. The future king is contributing most of the $12.5 million needed to pay Virginia Giuffre, with the Queen also chipping in. Both are set to be paid back when Prince Andrew and his ex-wife sell their $30 million Swiss chalet.
Melbourne researchers have begun a world-first project to improve the treatment of endometriosis and pelvic pain in young women. It's hoped a breakthrough will help prevent girls from missing out on sport, education and social activities.
For too long, pubescent girls have suffered in silence. The overwhelming majority of young women enduring monthly period pain, with 20% completely debilitated.
It was horrendous. I missed out on social things, I missed out on being a teenager, I missed out on being a child. And because of that, I had no control over my life at all. I got clinically depressed.
16-year-old Ruby is enjoying life with a combination of medications easing her crippling pain. She's now participating in a new study to better understand and treat endometriosis and period pain.
We are going to be recruiting Australia-wide 3,500 young people who are aged between 10 and 18.
The concern is symptoms are being untreated or dismissed, and girls are missing out on sport, education and socialisation.
You know, a 14-year-old girl who didn't go to school, couldn't participate in life, to suddenly a girl who wants to participate in everything.
The Long Step project will recruit participants aged between 10 and 18 via social media and from 20 hospitals across the country. The project will take around 5 years to complete, and the aim is to improve the care and management of endometriosis and pelvic pain. Early intervention can help young women avoid long-term consequences, including infertility. Ruby wants the stigma removed.
I'm just so excited that these conversations are finally happening.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
And Tim Watson returns with sport now. Tim, the AFL has revealed their COVID contingency plans.
Yes, Beck, we could see a player play for 2 clubs this season, as bizarre as that may sound. Details next. Also, inside access to the AFL umpiring hub ahead of a landmark season. We've got exclusive details on the mystery reason a bomber went missing, and the Premiers head into enemy territory ahead of next week's season opener. Welcome back. The hits keep coming for Collingwood ahead of next week's season opener. Returning to Mitch Cleary now. Mitch, they're now officially down another defender.
Well, Tim, they've already lost Jordan Ruffhead and Charlie Dean, and now the tribunal has thrown out Braden Maynard's appeal. His 2-match ban will stand, the tribunal saying that he breached his duty of care in this spoil and that the incident with Daniel Lloyd will be upheld. The Pies losing $10,000 for their trouble, all wrapped up tonight inside a half an hour. The club saying it is unlikely they will challenge with a further appeal. It's positive news, though, on the injury front. Recruit Pat Lipinski avoiding damage to his ankle from this nasty incident on the weekend and will make his debut in round 1. Jeremy Howe will also be there against the Saints in 10 days after his adductor concern, along with Taylor Adams and Isaac Quaynor. A refresh coming here at Collingwood HQ, deciding to replace only in the last few moments. The headquarters now being renamed from the Holden Centre to the AIA Centre in the next 24 hours. And finally, injury news at Geelong. The Cats taking a super cautious approach with Gary Rowan. He's been battling a back injury all pre-season, hasn't played any of the games yet and will miss round 1. Still tonight, the Cats saying there is no definitive timeline on his return to the AFL. Tim?
Thanks, Mitch. The AFL umpiring department says it's already seen a dramatic change in player behaviour. Andrew McCormack, you've just had an umpire briefing.
Tim, I'm here inside the AFL Arc at Marvel Stadium. During the week, it's home to the AFL umpires, and they've given us inside access here into the inner sanctum. And just over my shoulder, you can see they're going through an umpire briefing at the moment. A review of the games on the weekend, of course, hotly discussed is the new interpretation on holding the ball, a lot stricter this year, as well as a crackdown on umpire abuse. They say footy stars have already showing more respect towards umpires since they announced that crackdown. The AFL today also outlining the worst case scenario, keeping the season going with their official announcement of a top-up list. The AFL's break glass in case of COVID emergency.
This measure is really to give us as much insurance as possible and to keep the season going.
Each club will need to name a pool of 20 players from their respective VFL or state league teams. They can only access those players if COVID has left them with less than 28 of their 44 players on their list. The 20 players must be listed at state level and can't be brought in from elsewhere. The Cats couldn't call on part-time coach Eddie Betts, for example, unless he was named on their VFL list.
This has been quite a long process, and we've consulted with all 18 clubs. They've helped shape our views. Everyone's really comfortable with where it's landed.
It does leave the door open for a player to run out for 2 clubs in the one season if a top-up player is picked up by another team via the mid-season draft.
They'll still be eligible to participate in the mid-season draft and therefore theoretically eligible to go to another club.
Inside the AFL's Arc,
really good example here.
The umpires are fine-tuning the league's stricter holding the ball interpretation.
I think the weekend's games, I was really pleased with the way the umpires adjudicated holding the ball.
And the crackdown on umpire abuse.
I think the first game of the Amy series really set the tone.
Yeah, I think it's overdue. I think it's about respect for our role, and not just AFL umpires, but all umpires at every competition around the country.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
A star bomber has returned after a mysterious trip interstate. Chief Football reporter Tom Brown has exclusive details. And Tom, you can reveal where Dylan Shield was last week.
Tim, 2 weeks from round one, Dylan Shield took himself off to a leadership course interstate. The star bomber was missing last week, not at training and not physically. Saturday night's game against St Kilda. That's despite Shield being named as an emergency. Essendon was tight-lipped on the reason why. Now, the reason is Shield went to a 7-day leadership camp interstate. It was his idea and his initiative, I understand. Now, the Bombers tell me they approved and supported it, so it's a professional development course. They support a good thing, supporting individuals. He trained by himself while he was away, and he wouldn't have played anyway because of his quad, apparently. Shield was back today. He's only played now 1 of 3 practice games. If he's fit for round one, he will be selected, but it's unusual preparation, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Richmond got a special visit from the Demons today, training at the Punt Road headquarters as they wait for Gosh's paddock to be resurfaced. Stephen May was back training after being rested against the Blues with hamstring tightness. Christian Salem trained fully, managing a knee complaint. The Premiership Cup also dropped by this morning, courtesy of a long-time staff member who shared a special moment with the players. Steve Smith was left fuming in Pakistan, falling short of a century. Marnus Labuschagne was dismissed for 90 on day 4, while Smith made it to 78 before he was removed, still searching for his first century in 12 innings.
Yeah, pretty annoying. Got a bit greedy there. Disappointed to have worked pretty hard and got myself in a nice position to go on and get a big score.
The Aussies were bowled out for 459 early on day 5, 17 runs short of the home side's first innings total. The series opener heading towards a draw. World number 3, Alexander Zverev has avoided immediate sanctions for his attack at a chair umpire last month. The German received a suspended 8-week ban and $35,000 fine payable only if he reoffends in the next year. I think Michael Christian might have been a bit tougher.
I was going to say, you're lucky he doesn't face the AFL tribunal. It'll be more than that.
Yeah, exactly. That's sport.
Thanks, Tim. Jane returns now with the weather forecast. And Jane, how does it look?
Well, Michael, we begin our next stretch of dry weather tomorrow, and it could be with us for a while. The full details are next.
The back to work tug of war. Bosses versus workers.
There is a real reluctance.
The battle to get staff out of their homes and back into the office. The new phenomenon.
They are required to attend.
Your rights explained by the experts. 7 News at 6 o'clock.
Hello again. Melbourne's humid air has disappeared again and grey skies kept a lid on temperatures. The grey sky stretched for a long way and the city began on 15 and only just reached a top of 20.7. Drizzly showers from overnight contracted to outer suburbs during the day. With less humidity, the wind makes it feel colder than it actually is. We haven't experienced this sort of thing for quite a while. The wind has a bit of bite. The cloud lies across southern Victoria, but it doesn't reach the north of the state except in the northeast. The drizzle adds up to just a few millimetres in the southwest, but central and eastern parts of Gippsland are getting another soaking. Top falls are 30 to 60 millimetres and it's still going tonight. But it is nothing like what is occurring around the corner. A low is deepening just off the coast there, so the rain wraps around that, slamming into the coast so hard that it is making it into inland parts of New South Wales. After so many stretches of low pressure combined with that moisture from La Nina, this is Sydney's wettest start to the year on record. Nearly 900 millimetres already. Melbourne's entire year average is only 600. Ulladulla's had nearly 300 millimetres in just a day and a half. The low tells us what's going to happen from here, and with each step away from the coast, the rainfall rates are reducing. Next, high pressure will be taking control over much of the nation's weather. So the heavy rain does continue for New South Wales tonight, but as that low moves away, watch that rain ease back there tomorrow. It is the same for Gippsland. By later tomorrow, it is all over. Around the nation tomorrow, only 2 to 8 millimetres for Sydney. Showers there just in the morning, so the worst of it eases overnight. Severe thunderstorms do return to Brisbane, though there is a high risk of them there in the afternoon. It is mild in Adelaide and warm in Perth. To Victoria, the areas of rain in the southeast, they'll break to showers during the morning, and they're only drizzly for central parts of the state and into the southwest there. North of the Divide, it remains sunny and warm, and our winds tomorrow, they're still breezy southeasterly and strong in any exposed locations. Closer in, the wind howls if you're elevated or near the coast, otherwise it's breezy. We have a mix of sun and cloud, which should all be dry tomorrow. The city begins sunny, then cloud builds into the afternoon, but there's no wet weather. Leave the umbrella at home. It's a top of 22. And clear skies tomorrow night bring a cool one. It'll be our coolest night in 2.5 weeks, heading down to just 13 by the early hours of Thursday morning. And those nights of 13 last for 4 nights in a row. So throw the windows open if you haven't already. Cool nights are heading our way. They'll be single digits in outer suburbs. As we go through the days to end the week, there's a fair bit of sunshine, particularly in the morning. Cloud builds for the afternoon. It warms up across the weekend, and Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the risk of storms only in outer northeastern suburbs. 22 tomorrow, all dry across the Melbourne area. Gusty southeasterly wind, a mix of sun and cloud.
And leave the Brawleys home. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you very much, Jane. And that's 7 News for this Tuesday. We'll have updates throughout the night.
For now, from the 7 News team, have a great night.